Hello and welcome to today's event. Network demand is higher than ever. Learn how intelligent automation can help now and in the future. This is Ada Dahl, a senior fellow with the Center for Digital Government and former CIO for the state of South Dakota and former CIO for the city of Minneapolis. I'm excited to serve as the moderator for today's event and just want to say thanks to everyone for listening today. I know we're in for an informative session over the next 60 minutes. Before we begin, a couple of brief housekeeping notes. A recording of this presentation will be emailed to you within 48 hours. You can use this recording for your reference or pass it on to colleagues. This webcast is designed to be interactive, and you can participate in the Q&A by submitting your questions. Use the Q&A box at the lower left of the presentation panel and send in your questions throughout the presentations today. Our speakers will address as many of them as possible at the close of our webinar today. If you would like to download a PDF of the slides being used today, you can do so by clicking the Webinar Resources widget at the bottom of the console. Also, during today's webinar, you can connect with your peers via LinkedIn, Twitter, and Facebook. Please use hashtag GovTechLive to connect with your peers across the government technology platform via Twitter. At the close of the webinar, we encourage you to take a brief survey. If for any reason you're not able to stay with us the whole time but would like to complete the survey as much as possible, please click the survey widget at the bottom of the screen. Otherwise, the survey will pop up at the webinar concludes today. At this time, we recommend you disable your pop-up blockers, and if you're experiencing any sorts of challenges, hit the help button at the bottom of the console, and a webcast help guide will come up to assist you. Joining me today to discuss this timely topic are Justine Lupul and Daniela Lafrieda. Justine Lupul leads product experience for the U.S. public sector segment of CenturyLink Incorporated, a role concentration in product management and product development, targeting federal, state, and local government, as well as research and education customers. She has also held leadership positions in large enterprise sales and commercial operations and sales support program enablement, with much of her career dedicated in product management across several networking services categories. Focused on telecommunications, Justine has prior work experience at Level 3 Communications, now CTL, Broadwing Communications, now CTL, and AT&T in product management, sales, engineering, sales, and financial roles. She received a Master of Arts in econometrics, with a minor in mathematics from the State University of New York at Binghamton. Also with us today is Daniela Lafrieda, who is a senior advisor for state and local government and education and healthcare in Ciena's Solutions Development Organization. In his role, he leads Ciena's initiatives applying next-generation networking technologies to help these sectors deliver high-quality experiences to their constituents through disruptive technologies, optimized cloud strategies, virtualized infrastructure, and improved data security. Daniela has more than 25 years of experience helping customers leverage information, communications, and technology solutions to provide greater value, streamline their operations, and generate higher returns on network investments. In addition to his current role at Ciena, Daniela has worked in pioneering roles at AT&T, Sprint, and Fujitsu. He has presented at numerous industry conferences and published articles and posts on next-generation network connectivity as a critical foundation of enterprise transformation. Today, the flow of this webinar, I'm going to set the stage by talking about some public sector trends that I'm seeing today. And then Justine is going to give us some industry sites on adaptive networking for digital transformation. And Daniela is going to follow with some technologies for enabling the adaptive network. And then the three of us are going to get together for a fireside chat, and where we can dig more in depth into intelligent automation. And then we're going to finish up with that Q&A session to answer as many of your questions as possible. When I look at the shifts that I'm starting to see relative to, in particular, the pandemic that we're in the midst of, I think that the post-pandemic world is going to start to see a shift in government's work environments as well as their actual processes. We're already seeing things like more use of video conferencing. We're seeing more bandwidth and secure connections requirements because we've got all these employees now working from home, working remote. And also government functions like libraries, DMV, they're starting to deliver and want to deliver more of their services online. Of course, we're going to see some financial challenges. State and local governments are seeing reduced sales tax revenue right now, and they see delayed individual income tax revenue. And whether you're in state level or local jurisdictions, this is prompting governments to seek more efficiency through modernization. And those modernizations are going to be with the network and other technologies. This is also being challenged by the fact that these challenges get staffing pressures, and that's driving initiatives that we're starting to see in increasing employee efficiency and productivity. Time is of the essence, which puts great demands on government networks and other infrastructure. I'm also seeing that folks are looking at the processes and systems that failed or performed poorly, and those are going to be modernized from networks to compute power to applications. And in closing, I like this slide that was put together by eRepublic this year, some of the things that we're seeing at the center. If you look at those top four items, work from home is going to be for more and more non-essential government functions in the future, as institutions are able to take advantage of that capability. Social distancing is going to be implemented. Some of those technologies are going to be connected to the internet. Business processes need to be re-engineered so that remote work is possible, or they can be possible through remote work. And then also CIOs are going to be pushed to modernize their IT infrastructure, including networks. Now, I would like to get a sense of where people are right now, considering the pandemic that we're in the middle of. And if I could get audience members to answer this question: is your organization reevaluating its digital transformation plans given recent events? Select either yes, no, or I don't know, and hit the submit button. And then we can see where people are at. Thank you. Just wait a few seconds. All right, let's see what we got here. Yeah, 2/3 of the folks out there are reevaluating their digital transformation plans. Not unexpected at all. Cool. Well, without further ado, I'd like to hand the virtual mic over to Justine Lupul for her comments. Justine, all yours.
Thank you, Otto. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay, and thank you to our partners at Sienna and eRepublic for setting up this forum today. It's really good to be here to share what CenturyLink is seeing among state and local agencies as well as educational institutions. So I've got 3 main messages that I just wanted to share with everyone today, and I look forward to commentary and any questions during our Q&A later. The first of the 3 main messages, one is that network needs and network technology solutions are more critical than ever to digitally connect to our state and local government business peers, to key technology partners, as well as all the citizens and students that we serve. Number 2, I'll talk about adaptive and built-in automation for digital solutions and the benefits delivered. And lastly, integrated security, right? Having secure technology solutions is everything, and it's more critical today, really than it's been even in, just a few months ago. Let me speak firstly about how really critical it is to place networking solutions transformation at the top of our collective priorities, particularly given, what we've all seen and learned, year to date in 2020. In recent months, CenturyLink has observed our customers responding and shifting to entirely new and dramatically different work pressures like none of us were expecting. Those state, local educational entities that are in a better position today to nimbly support their users' needs are the ones that have taken action to adopt more modern approaches to networking technology solutions. Right now, there's, as Otto just walked us through, there are significant demands in supporting whole organizations working remotely to meet our citizens where they are, often online, digitally, and on mobile devices. Certainly, we've seen larger network traffic demands at all endpoints of network communications, and we're all asked to step up to unexpected work volumes in new ways, and all of this with highly pressured, financial budget environments. So key here is around moving with speed in technology decisions, and also, assuring that we partner with entities who can simplify the complexity and leverage the best of breed today. Having a partner that has the ability to step up immediately is not just important in assuring user support, but also more importantly, given the real world environment that we find ourselves in, to assure that local healthcare communications, for instance, are enabled where they're critically needed. CenturyLink has been in the news recently with many examples of immediate 7x24 response for critical network service upgrades and connections. Partnering with a provider that can help navigate and simplify the complexity of our IT technology environments is critical, given that network solutions have certainly become more complicated. Adaptive networking solutions are available now. These have modern, adaptable elements, solutions that are reconfigurable and don't require protracted re-implementation measures, nor labor-intensive physical installs. So there are new ways to approach networking solutions transformation, and they enable a lot of flexibility to weather and support upcoming pressures of business, alleviate stress, and better take advantage of the resources that we all have. Adaptive management and built-in automation for digital solutions. When we think about effective networking solutions transformation, right, data is a core construct of it all. And an effective approach in today's world environment requires creative approaches in the way that we acquire data, analyze data, and act on it. Those new approaches to technology solutions for networking technologies and also, other IT services that power our government education businesses can enable real-time change. They're adaptive, they're smart, they're dynamic. They can free up staff away from low value-added work, and they can eliminate more manual human tasks. These adaptive hybrid networking solutions can help government and educational entities stay on top of today and tomorrow's demand. Let me give you a few reasons why I introduced several networking options amongst the broad set of options that are available. For highly compliant data, for the use of security encryption to protect data in motion, true fiber foundation-based solutions for high performance and high reliability. There's Ethernet, VPN, Internet solutions, also software-defined versions of these data, voice, and video solutions. We've all heard about cloudification, right, with the need for continual uninterrupted data movement from sources to sync. Dynamic connections are offered to cloud infrastructures. Cloud is a really wonderful new platform that enables technology solutions to move out of secure data center environments into the cloud to provide real dynamic ability to change and modify, spin up and spin down applications. Something that used to take, many weeks and many months literally can be completed, in minutes now. These new adaptive hybrid networking approaches also enable really wonderful insights in real time to the data that's powering our ability to serve, citizens and students, so that we can respond with visibility and control. There are real edge computing pilots. I think we'll be talking about them later in the webinar. Internet of Things, 5G, the ability to act on the data that's, powering the solutions that our technologies enable in government and educational entities. There are real world edge computing pilots that are now up and operational, so that devices, sensors, tools, right, can be deployed in remote and maybe unsafe or unhealthy places now. That's important for today's reality, resulting in better services. And integrated security, if network can be a differentiating factor in terms of ensuring uptime, availability, and application performance, the network also can be a big differentiator in terms of keeping elements protected. We can talk about smart cities and smart public places. Governments building increasingly public-private ecosystems. Data integrity is paramount for us all. Given the proliferation of the number of endpoints and connected devices, it's more important than ever that the data that rides over the technologies that we put into place, they must be protected. It's really important for all public sector entities to understand, identify, and defend against today's dynamic threats before security incidents happen. CenturyLink has a unique value in the security space. We have one of the largest and most deeply peered IP backbones in the world, giving us an expansive global visibility into the threat landscape on the global internet. In terms of digital transformation solutions that we're all keenly looking at now, as our technology solutions evolve from dedicated, nailed-up private line and VPN connections that our business offices, at least today and in the past, supported where our employees or students work. They're evolving toward a more modern public IP-based software-defined networking solutions linked to work-from-home employees. Built-in security is paramount. There are more advanced approaches that as well can be leveraged, such as zero-trust networking, as we approach data network technology solutions that are IP-based, using deeper and identity-based access traffic monitoring. So in conclusion, now more than ever, as we look to modernize and future-proof our networking solutions, we need to be mindful of the partners that we engage. Adaptive networking solutions, those approaches enable always on, always visible, limitless infrastructure environment, and security must be built in, proactive, and automatic, and not bolt on. Thank you, Otto. Those are all of my starting commentary.
Great, thanks, Justine. And now we'll hear from Daniela. Lafrieda. Daniela.
Thank you, Otto, and hopefully everyone can hear me. And hopefully everyone can see my slide. Daniela Lafrieda with Sienna. It's great to be here today. Thank you to the audience. Thanks to our partners, Center for Digital Government and CenturyLink. Just to kind of start out, what we're seeing is, with the slow reopening of the governments, right? We're moving back to an era where not only are we having to go forward with work at home type of arrangements, but now as we're reopening, citizens are starting to demand that same level of experience that they were before the pandemic, right? And some of us and some agencies are ready for that, some are not. So yes, while we will continue a lot of agencies with the work from home arrangements, some of the essential services agencies are going to have to reopen their physical locations, in some sort of modified environment. So the IT teams are really kind of trying to strike a fine balance between ensuring that they can deliver on that higher level of customer experience while dealing with severely restricted budgets. And so from our perspective, and we work with state and local governments from around the world, but to an agency, to a person, a CIO, they're saying basically what we're doing, we're in an era of having to accomplish more with less, right? And so what we're going to talk about is how you can do that, right? Because first we have to start from the aspect that demand from citizens and your staff is for any time, anywhere, any device access to the digital applications and the data that are essential to government services. And all of that, accessing that data, transporting that data across between data centers and branches and through VPNs to the home, it is really placing a great level of strain on the network. And so I'm going to kind of talk about three things here, and hopefully you can see this slide. Sienna sort of, coined the term adaptive network. We took trademarks of it over the last year, but more importantly, we've been working about the last 7 years to develop the technology that really enables the adaptive network. So my first sort of point is going to talk about, what are the key components and technologies behind the adaptive network. And I'm going to talk about, what does that mean? How does that help a state and local government? And then I'll finish with a couple of examples with some jurisdictions that have implemented parts of this. Now, as you see here, I'm going to stay at a very high level because each one of these sections, from programmable infrastructure all the way up through software control and automation, that could take an hour or two, just to go through that. And if your network teams or your technical folks are wanting to see that, we'll definitely make appointments to talk to them about that. But from a very high level, it really kind of starts with what we call programmable infrastructure. Everyone has fiber, whether you've got your state government with a private section of network or a network operator, service provider. Everyone starts with the fiber, and then how do they get the data across that fiber? And that's through the network devices, whether they're physical or increasingly virtual devices that are sort of put throughout the network. Now, the difference with us, in most environments, you've got different vendors, different domains, different layers, and you have to have human resources dedicated to each one of those vendors and each one of those technologies to help manage it. What we're talking about with our solutions into the adaptive network is you're taking all of those multi-vendor devices through the different layers, through the different domains, and through resource adapters and APIs, being able to manage all of those devices from a single pane of glass, from a single person. So that's really taken a lot of the complexity, a lot of the redundancy, and a lot of the cost out of doing that. Now, the data, the traffic data on what's going on with the network on each one of those devices is fed into an analytics and intelligence platform. It's machine learning based. But what really that does is it takes all that traffic and is able to make very, very accurate predictions about what may happen in any section of the network based upon the traffic patterns that they're seeing. Some examples are, we've had clients that are really interested in particular agencies and particular applications where they've experienced congestion and or outages over the past year or two. And with this analytics and intelligence platform, we're able to predict within almost to a day when, based upon the traffic patterns, that condition might result in congestion or failure. And whereas in the past it would take days or even weeks to really identify the source of that outage, with our solution, you can really do it within a matter of minutes. And more importantly, be able to proactively model on a what-if scenario based upon whether you're going to take down a section of the network to do maintenance on routers or something. With this particular device, you'll be able to model what might be the downstream implications of doing that. Then based upon all that predictive type of analytics, that's then fed into a software-based control and management and automation platform that basically says, if a certain condition occurs or a threshold is passed in the network, I want my devices all across my networks, all across my domains and vendors to take a particular action. It could be that you want to prioritize performance over security, or security over performance, or whatever you want to do, but automate it rather than having to go through multiple layers of humans endeavors. Because we did a survey last year where we found that over 60% of errors and delays in any type of network function is based upon human error. So we want to automate that as much as possible. We're not saying to totally take human interaction out of there, but what we're saying with the more redundant, routine types of transactions, automate those, and the network operator will be able to dictate when a human should be flagged to take action on that. Now, how does that help state and local government? Well, again, we're having to do more with less. So the more processes and actions that used to have a human do it, if you can automate those repetitive processes, that frees your staff up to focus on higher value applications and services and working with your internal customers. It also allows you, the network operator or the government, whoever is managing that network, to define the policies and procedures that dictate how deep into the process, whether the inventory, the IT, what type of process, how deeply that automation should flow. And it gives you the ability to dictate that automation. And that's the difference between just kind of regular autonomous automation versus what we're calling intelligent automation. It puts you, the network operator, in control. Now, where have we seen some of that benefit some state and local governments? I can't give the names because we don't have permission, but I can talk about them. One particular CIO organization on an enterprise architecture basis was running a very large, complicated MPLS network, probably like about 1,000, 1,200 locations throughout the state. And they were finding that with the trying to support more advanced applications like artificial intelligence, machine learning, chatbots, that sort of thing, they were experiencing more latency, more congestion, and some unexplained outages. And in the past, when they would have to work through their internal engineering team and working with the vendors and the providers, it would take them probably like a week of 10-hour days stuck in a room, and you're trying to really locate the source of that that outage. And what they did, they trialed a particular software package that we offer, and they were able to, within about 20 minutes, identify the router that really caused this cascading series of events that resulted in first a slowdown of performance and in an overall outage. So they were able to locate that within about, as I say, 20 minutes and reroute and be able to bring the circuits back up. The next piece is that they said, hey, based upon this, let's do some what-if modeling, and saying, because we have to do regular router maintenance, let's see if we were going to take down X number of routers and X number of locations, what would that do to the network, and how would that impact application performance? So we were able to model that and then put in place some backup alternatives that ensured that the application performance stayed up, and so that the ultimate end users weren't even aware that there was the network was taken down for maintenance. The second example, and where we're working with an entire province, that because of the COVID-19, they're really trying to identify where they can put up temporary emergency health clinics to treat all those who are coming to be tested and might need to stay. And so they were looking at gymnasiums, putting up tents in places, you name it. But wherever they are, they have to have access to all the electronic health records, any MRIs, prescriptions, all that sort of thing that are really located in different clouds or in different data centers. So each of those locations needs some sort of connectivity. And in the past, they would have to put multiple types of devices in the telecom closet in each one of those areas: a router, firewall, optimizer, that sort of thing. So that's a cost in terms of having to deploy a technician to configure it and put it in. The power and the space cost. And then if anything were to go wrong or need to be patched or updated, they would have to dispatch technicians from a central location out to each one of these areas, which is a cost plus lost productivity in the day. With our type of solution, what we said is take one network device and put all of those different functions, router, firewall, et cetera, into that one white box and deliver those network functions via software, where it's called the network function virtualization. So we're able to consolidate all those different boxes and all the needs, all the different needs to dispatch technicians to maintain them, and put them all into one box. And each one of those network functions would be able to be managed, updated, and troubleshot from a remote technician, back at headquarters. So those are two different examples of how this concept of network vision has resulted in, quantifiable benefits to state and local jurisdictions. So that's all that I really had to speak about. Again, as I said, Otto, each one of these areas that you see here on the screen, we could take 2 hours to go into, but I hope that gave a fairly high-level explanation of the adaptive network components and how it can help a state local government.
Yeah, thank you, Daniela. I most definitely believe you got that information over to folks. Before we start the Fireside Chat, we'd like to get the audience to answer the following question. Again, get some sense of where folks are at. Could you select one of these relative to, was your network prepared for employees to work from home prior to March of this year? Yes, we were set up for this change, somewhat. Some things did not work well. No, we had to scramble to make things work. Please select one and submit. Thank you. All right, just give a few more seconds and we'll see where folks, what experiences they had. Looks like people were fairly well set up, a little over half. Some things didn't go well for others, and a few folks had to scramble. Not surprising considering the magnitude of the challenge that everyone faced. Well, just to remind folks, we're going to start a fireside chat, but we'd ultimately like to hear from the audience through your questions about the things that you would like the speakers to address. And so again, if you'd find that Q&A window and start submitting your questions, we will get to those shortly. I'll kick off this part of the webinar by asking a couple of questions, and then we'll start digging into the questions that the audience puts forth. You know, the demand for rapidly deployed networking services is often outpacing many IT network teams' capacity. Fortunately, there's a fair amount of network automation tools appearing. Daniela, can you talk to what networking tasks can be automated by the tools that are appearing?
Sure, and the real key there is, which of those functions, have the most impact and the most cost, impact. And so if we look at what are the biggest pain points in delivering a network service, one is certainly in the service order processing, right? If we're thinking about, and I think Justine mentioned, the capabilities like CenturyLink can deliver, including like bandwidth on demand, and and when you need it right away, and rather than wanting having to take weeks to do that, the service order processing types of automation can enable a service provider to deliver that within hours or minutes, depending upon whether the client is subscribed to a particular portal. So service order processing is absolutely one of the biggest, because if you think of all the previous manual processes that had to go into just taking a service order, looking at the inventory sheets, passing it along to all the different engineers who have to weigh in on that, rather than each human taking a step with that, if you can automate that, that greatly reduces the time between service order and getting into the implementation stage. And then certainly the actual implementation deployment of the service, to the extent that you can automate that. And that's where I talked about some of the virtualization. Can you do it via software versus a hard network device? That's going to greatly reduce the time to implement. It's going to ensure that it's configured when it's delivered to the particular site, that it's configured right the first time. And it really takes a lot of complexity and time and cost out of it. And then finally, the service assurance, right? When something goes wrong, you'd like to be able to get that resolved right away. And again, if you look at all the previous manual processes, they would have to go to taking the trouble ticket, passing it along, dealing with different vendors, trying to get permission. That took a long time. But again, the tools that service providers are putting into place, and governments who have their own private network, to the extent that you can automate that, you can either greatly reduce the amount of time to repair, and ideally, if you got it set up right, you're going to minimize the need for to resolve trouble tickets, because the network will be able to predict when an occurrence might occur, and through software-based control, alleviate that problem before it's even noticed.
Yeah. Justine, are there other approaches to jurisdictions, for jurisdictions that may lack resources to implement and manage solutions?
Yeah, Otto, there are other approaches. I mean, resourcing is a challenge that, I don't know that anyone, corners the market on that challenge. Given the pace of technology and the just a challenge of staying on top of changing technology, right? Resourcing is difficult. There's a couple of approaches that we could think about. One would be to take advantage of new approaches like managed services scenarios for networking solutions, taking advantage of a technology partner that not only can implement a technology solution, then also manage it for us. If often will fill in the gaps in resources or skills gap, or even aging resource populations. It allows workers in public sector to focus on other more strategic, important tasks, right? That can advance our business forward in a managed service environment approach. Entities don't have to own their own infrastructure, right? They don't have to worry about doing technology upgrades. Those are done, on your behalf. And most innovative managed service providers, they are building best of breed, state of the art reporting, performance dashboarding for online secure visibility and control. So there's expertise and knowledge and technology partners, right, that can be leveraged. And certainly there's a broad array of these types of kind of well-wrapped technology solutions that, can fill resourcing gaps, professional services that can, we said setting up and implementing, but also, managing these technology solutions long-term, leveraging IT consulting and application upgrades. We talked earlier about, maybe migrating IT applications from centralized data centers to the cloud and as a service type of approaches, so that you can quickly, with limited resources, take advantage of best of breed secure solutions. And then lastly, you can think about leveraging available state and national contracts to avoid, lengthy procurement cycles. So those are some ways that we could drive speed and simplify complexity.
Okay. Yeah, I always found that as a CIO, at times I needed to find ways of just having literally the bandwidth to deal with things. Staff often got constrained by a million things to get done, and so the industry gave us that ability, even if it was just for a period of time, all the way to doing it full time. And so those things I think are very useful. They're sort of along the same lines. We have a number of sophisticated networks that CIOs and IT organizations are having to deal with. They're increasing numbers as the years have gone on here. And I think a question I hear often is, are there, would you have any suggestions? Are there techniques for organizations to reduce this complexity in the multiple networks that they're trying to manage, troubleshoot, and upgrade per se? I mean, what advice would you have for people that have all these complex networks? And I'll throw that Daniela's way.
Thanks, Otto. You have to go back to kind of the philosophy of do you want to have multiple agencies, kind of shadow networks out there doing their own deals, having their own data going across, or do you really want to move to more a converged, enterprise architecture where instead of all these redundant, disparate networks out there, you've got a single network platform and architecture, right? But again, with some of the technologies I talked about, especially segment routing, network slicing, et cetera, you're able to converge all those networks, yet still ensure the priority of traffic that you need for that some agencies are going to demand, like public safety, and maybe health and human services or traffic management, that need that low latency, high priority traffic. You'll be able to guarantee that performance, and yet still be able to have this converged network where all the various agencies are able to take advantage of that. And as I said before, automate wherever possible all the different service aspects, and then virtualize wherever possible. Again, you don't want to have someone in each branch dealing with the different types of network gear. To the extent that you can provide those network functions via software, that's the way you want to go. And again, as I said in the beginning, being able to have all these different vendors and all these different domains, have that single pane of glass to all those different network devices that can be managed either by the government or whatever service provider that they are going with. That is going to greatly reduce the complexity and cost of that network.
Yeah. We've been moving computing and data into the hands of field staff now for some number of years to great value for government. And as we mentioned, whether it's people now working at home, but more importantly, there's always going to be people out in the field. And I think one of the things we always were investigating is, what edge services specifically do you see, Justine, in the industry that's going to provide or be provided to customers to really increase that efficiency and productivity of those folks out in the field, i.e. on the edge?
Being able to utilize data to acquire it, analyze it, act on it, that is going to enable more personalized and engaging experiences for all of our end users, right, that take advantage of the technology solutions that, we all deploy together. And artificial intelligence will play a big role in this transition as data moves from centralized locations and, on-prem centralized locations further out to the source, so it can be enacted upon locally for greater efficiency. Local governments are beginning to deploy artificial intelligence. If you think about edge, moving data to the edge, or AI applications driven by IoT and 5G. As Daniela mentioned, right? As you move data to the edge and you incorporate that in your networking solutions, they require very low latency because you need instant processing and the instantaneous, immediate insights to be developed so that you can act upon it. There's edge computing trials that are stood up right now. If you think about any indoor site, like as an example, that could benefit from removing human workers to promote healthy workforces amidst physical distancing guidelines, enabling local technology solutions decisions for greater efficiency or, faster servicing. We can think about incorporating sensors or, devices or robotics for more efficient or real-time outcomes. Both at Sienna and CenturyLink, we have advanced solution engineers who'd be happy to explore pilot deployments with state and county agencies, as well as educational institutions in terms of supporting a better user experience.
Yeah. Okay. Getting some questions here from the audience. We've got one here. Someone is asking, do you feel there will be a need to be an infrastructure change if the dispersed network demand continues permanently?
Was that directed to any particular person?
No, either one. It's an interesting question because I think what they're getting at is, if this just continues at this level, I would be concerned that this is only one of maybe many bumps down the road in the way of potentially more need for connectivity, more need for capacity, et cetera.
Yeah, if I could start. That is a very interesting question. I mean, you think about where users are demanding networking solutions, cycles and resources, and where the sources of the data that they're interacting with reside. And I think that's an interesting question, where everything is becoming more dispersed, right? The sources of data are becoming more dispersed, and then the users, right? You have to, enable your technology solutions to, be where your users are, and they're more and more digitally and dispersely situated, and they're appearing through multiple types of digital devices. So I certainly believe that, that I think that the solution approaches, and we've been talking about a lot of it here for the last 50 minutes or so, the solutions transformation that's required absolutely will need to evolve. And, it's less about, nailed up networking service designs, right, in maybe core state or local government facilities where, with certainty that's where my employees reside, or, on campus and in large locations on campus where your students are going to be, and you could, right, have known performance with known security capabilities. Now it's far more dispersed. You can take advantage of new modern technologies, such as, use public internet connections, bring your own connectivity, cloud-based data sources. Security will become more important, right? Making sure that security is built in, making, kind of zero trust and identity management. Those will need to be, contemplated up front, and having highly reliable, redundant, connectivity in that more dispersed kind of a web, right, of data source and sync. Absolutely. So technology partner choices, right, taking advantage of, skills and expertise to help you, quickly adopt and adapt is really key there.
Yeah. I got another question here from the audience. What's the possibility that an organization will be able to spend a lot of money for automation?
Yeah, and I'll be happy to take that because we've worked with sort of several organizations. So first, I think there's an impression that automation is a lot of money, right? So first, we'd have to say, depending upon the use case, and the particular area that you wanted to automate, it may not be that much money, right? So again, we're not saying from the adaptive network, that wheel that I put up there, that you got to go and do everything at once, right? It's an iterative process. And what we do is start to talk with different agencies and say, what are your mission critical areas of your business, and what is the financial impact, that happens when you've got to go back and do multiple things because the process was broken, or you had a lot of human error, or you had a lot of steps that had to be handed off back and forth. And then what if you could automate that? What would that do in terms of decreasing any service level agreements that you might have with your internal customers? What that might be in terms of expanding or increasing the volume of revenue coming in through your agency because you're able to deliver that citizen service faster. So again, those are all the types of things we would look at and say, okay, of all your different steps, what would give you, if we automated one or a few of these, which would give you the best return on your investment. So that's the way we kind of look at. And even we work from small enterprise customers all the way up to the largest tier one service providers in the world, and I tell you, no one goes and does this all at once, right? So again, it's an iterative process that is kind of unique to each organization. And as I said, you look to automate the most impacting processes, and then you can always go back and automate some of the others. Yeah. And you can demonstrate, a solid return, and that the savings that you're generating, or the accelerated revenue generation, greatly outweighs the initial cost.
Yeah, I found agencies and departments often saw technology as really viable for solving a lot of their challenges. And, you could see the increase in the overall cost of a lot of agencies and departments over time increasing as they were using more and more technology to do things faster, better, to even carry out some functions that they couldn't do before, but that technology allowed them. So again, you're right. You have to justify it to the powers to be able to take a chunk out of the budget that any organization ultimately has to stay within. I got an interesting question here from the audience. Part of being a responsive government in these rapidly changing times is scaling up connectivity to the net. What things are being done to streamline the responsiveness to government requests for network connectivity capacity? I know this was always, and I am sure a lot of this happened during the early days of the pandemic, as people saw, millions of people going after potentially their unemployment insurance systems, or, all these folks being out in the community across the state that now had to work from home. What would you guys think of that? Either of you?
Justine, I'll pass it to you.
I'm sorry, Justine. Yeah, sure. At CenturyLink, we are actively rethinking how we engage with public sector entities to implement and deliver and modify service requests. And frankly, one huge positive, we were working on this transformation for a long time to do a lot of things that we're talking about here, to eliminate, manual work, and to eliminate, manual swivel chairing tasks, and to streamline and automate core functions at CenturyLink, which is to deliver services for our customer partners. We've been at it for a long time, and we've been working hard. One of the really positives that's come out of the bigger pandemic is a really fast-paced, forced rethink on the way that we could do that with immediate speed. And we, in a lot of cases, we resequenced, what was required, focusing on, the immediate service turn up, or service capacity change, or service, configuration change before any administrative, interaction, was completed. Here's a couple of examples. There was one healthcare customer in the federal side of public sector where we were able to upgrade their internet capacity by 200 gigs and turn it up within 48 hours window of time. That's fast. We were able to turn around a fiber circuit activation down in New Mexico for the state New Mexico Department of Health and the Army Corps of Engineers. From the initial request, within 30 hours of that request, we had a person out, on site, and this is a terrestrial, ground-based service. We had the circuit activated. The education sector, with an entity that had, over 1.1 million students, they needed, immediate connectivity to 150,000 staff and faculty members. literally within a handful of hours, over a few days, we activated a direct cloud connection with all the needed remote endpoint capacity. So, just like the public sector entities that we partner with, we're rethinking how we can be, very responsive in terms of, scaling up connectivity and capacity and network services.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a governor that I worked for that used to always say, IT should be able to do everything at the speed of light. So I want to be respectful of our 1 hour commitment. So we're going to have to wrap things up here, folks. In closing, I would like to just thank everyone for joining us for today's event. Big thank you needs to go out to my fellow speakers, Justine and Daniela. Excuse me, and a special thanks to our partners at Sienna and CenturyLink for enabling us to bring this worthwhile discussion to our audience. And so again, I'd like to thank everyone, and we look forward to seeing you all again soon on another government technology event. Take care, everyone, and stay safe.